Good evening, Calvary Crossway. I am very cold tonight because it's very cold this May day.
This afternoon, I was having a conversation with someone in our room in my office here, and I got irritated at the sound of the fan, so I unplugged the heater that runs in my basement, and now Priscilla is cold. But in hindsight, I realized this is a pretty good thing for me because she's cuddling me tighter than normal, and I'm pretty content with that.
Speaking of content, we'll segue right into our conversation for
That was
tonight.
so smooth.
Yeah, it is.
So we do want to talk about contentment tonight. I don't know about you guys, but man, Priscilla and I have just talked over and over about the fact that we are so over this.
No.
It's just I'm ready to be with people and talk with people and not have every conversation that we do have in person be kind of forced and moving forward that way. And we're ready to have things different than they are.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about contentment is a couple weeks ago we talked about that idea of waiting on the
Mm-hmm.
Lord and how waiting on the Lord is, recognizing His timing. And I think that that just kind of dovetails right into contentment. And it's just something that the Lord's been reworking on my heart. I feel like He really taught me a lot of that last year. And then I don't know, sometimes those lessons, I feel like we just have to learn them again. And for me, one of the best things that I learned about contentment is actually a book we read last summer in church for our ladies' book club. And it was a book by Ashley Hales called Finding Holy in the Suburbs. And God just really used that in my heart to transform my thinking, more contentment as far as where I am actually physically located in my life. Um, in Ashley Hale's book, she's similar to where we are, just kind of in that really upper middle class suburban neighborhood. And, she probably naturally feels more at home and more comfortable in a really urban setting. I would say probably I'm a little different because I probably feel more naturally at home, kind of in that small town, rural, middle of nowhere, is kind of where I would, um, if I just plot me anywhere. And God just really used that time in that book to just teach me that where He has me is where He has me, and where He has me, we're going to dig down our roots really deep. And I think that part of just COVID and finding myself in circumstances maybe not the ones that I specifically would have chosen for May 2020 has just really taught me or reminded me that I really need to dig my roots down deep. I really need to sink into where He has me, into my neighborhood, into my cul-de-sac, into my family in these, homeschooling, and just recognizing that though we wait for Him and though we're waiting on Him for the ending of whatever this pandemic will look like, or waiting on Him for the next thing to happen in life, part of that waiting is really diving deep into contentment.
Yeah, and it's diving deep into an acknowledgement and an understanding of God's sovereignty.
Yeah.
Um, COVID took us by surprise, like big time, but it did not take our God by surprise.
I can clearly remember, like, we had home group, and it was like that would have been a Thursday. We had home group, and we were all starting to talk about, wow, this whole COVID thing. Friday, the girls had like a performance or something at school, and then by Monday, everything was shut down. And it was like that was really fast to go from here to here.
Yeah, and just recognize that God knew that as we move forward. And then I think it's important for us to find our contentment. This has really demonstrated to a lot of us where in our lives we find our satisfaction. I'm finding my satisfaction in the fact that I am free to go and do the things that I normally do. I mean, the reality is, before this, we would have never even thought of that question. But
Yeah.
where do you find your satisfaction? Paul writes to Timothy, and in Timothy's church, some of the people were struggling with an attachment to wealth. And that
Mm-hmm.
attachment to wealth and that attachment to fame within the church that gained them wealth was where they found their satisfaction and where they found their contentment. And so Paul addresses directly to these people in Timothy's church this in 1 Timothy 6, verse 6.
But godliness with contentment is great gain.
And then he reminds them in the next verse, for we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of it. But if we have food and clothing with these, we will be content. And then it warns about those who desire to be rich. And we would have never thought about being rich in our freedoms in America. They're kind of thought of as rights. And the reality is, we were, and we still are, rich in our freedoms. And I think it's important for us to recognize that God has given us everything that we need to be content in Him. And we can rest in that. That's what Paul is calling the people in Timothy's church to do, is to be content with what God has provided for them.
And I hadn't run this by Josh yet. So if it's untheological, we'll take down this video.
Untheological.
If it's heresy. No, but today as I was thinking through, there's just some circumstances in our life where we're waiting on the Lord, and I get impatient in the waiting. I get my, that idea of that verse where, hope deferred, that idea of makes the heart sick, just that idea of it's tiresome in the waiting. And so as I've been thinking through that, as I've been trying to study through waiting on the Lord and what it means, today it kind of clicked, and I actually I just spent some time meditating on the thought that, Romans 12 offers us to offer our lives as a living sacrifice. And we don't sacrifice to atone for sin or anything like that. But I was just, as I was thinking through waiting on the Lord in the circumstances in my heart that are hard, I thought of how contentment is an offering and a sacrifice that I can give the Lord during the waiting. Not to earn any favor or anything, but just recognizing I'm waiting on you. It's hard, but I'm going to give to you a content heart, because that's what He's called us to do in the waiting.
Yeah, I don't think you're untheological.
Okay, we won't censor that.
Yeah, we won't censor this. I do think that we were created by God to live as living sacrifices. And it not only is it a sacrifice to live for Him that way, but it's where you will find the most joy. If you are continually chomping at the bit saying, when am I going to get this, and when am I going to get that, and when am I going to be able to go to my coffee shop again, or when am I going to be able to have this bit of freedom, or when will my kids not be in my house to learn school, man, you're not going to find satisfaction there. You're not going to find contentment there. But I really believe God has right now, where you are, no matter where that is, provided for you the contentment. The reality is, all of us are in different places right now. We're all suffering the same storm. The reality is, we're all also in different boats in the storm. I heard somebody say that today, and it sounded cool. But that is the reality. You may be feeling this discontentment in one area. We're feeling it in a different area, and God has given us, He's promised us, He's given us everything we need for contentment, and we should be satisfied in that.
And one of the things that I think we can do is, as we learn these lessons in the crucible or the fire of COVID and being in these circumstances that are so unusual, is these are heart lessons that aren't going to go away when life gets back to normal. And so learn them now, practice them well now, because we're going to find ourselves in, some sort of normalcy again at some point. And our heart is going to need to relearn those lessons, or we'll find ourselves challenged in contentment in a different area. And so learn them well now in this time.
Yeah, I think that's really important for us to do. So, and I was thinking yesterday as I was preaching, I preached on a passage that talked about us being children, finding our satisfaction from a nursing mother, and that's God our Father, who is caring for us in that way. And there's just a simplicity in what God has provided for us to be able to help us have satisfaction. And let's be satisfied in the simple things that God has given us, the simple meals and the feeding that He gives to us, like little children who are satisfied in a mother's care.
And then, as we were talking about this week and what we're going to do, to me, contentment often comes down to just sometimes even the geographical location that I find myself placed in, and just digging deep into where God has us now. And so we're going to use this contentment as a springboard for tomorrow when we're going to revisit a topic that we worked extensively on as a church probably about a year ago, hospitality, because lo and behold, things are sort of starting to wake up, at least in our city and somewhat our state now. And so as we navigate these newer, I don't know,
Restrictions.
restrictions, how can we really dig deep into hospitality? And what, again, does that look like? Because maybe in the last 2 months of isolation, we've learned some bad habits.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that tomorrow night as we kind of begin to open up not just our community, but open up our homes in hospitality. And then also on Thursday night, I want to remind you all, if you are a member of Calvary Crossway or you've attended for a while, we'd love for you
Or
to
you're
join us.
bored and you want something
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah. We'd love for you to join us for our business meeting on Thursday night via Zoom.
Exciting.
If you need details on that, you can give us a call or you can find the link for that on our website. And we're going to be making some decisions in that. So I just want to encourage you to be able to be there for that. If you're not a member of Calvary Crossway, we would welcome you to be there, but you will not have a vote in it. But we do have that business meeting coming up on Thursday evening.
All right.
All right, well, we're about ready to go find our contentment in placing our children in bed. So we will see you guys tomorrow night. Love you all.
Bye.
Musgraves out.